Hey there, card family and friends. Welcome back to another episode of Double D's Card Talk. This time around, we're coming back with part 2 of our air card extravaganza. So stay tuned, we've got some new stories for you. So back in our part 1 episode, I did a segment on cards where the picture depicts the wrong player. And even though we did a segment for that category of errors, this other one came to my attention shortly afterwards. And the story was just too good not to share, so I decided to include it here in our part 2. So in the 1969 set, the card for Aurelio Rodriguez, it actually depicts a bat boy for the team who was Leonard Garcia. Since Aurelio was a rookie and the collecting world wasn't as connected as it is now, the prevalence of this error didn't really catch on right away, and it wasn't until 1973 when Topps actually acknowledged that the photo on the card was not Aurelio Rodriguez and was actually a team bat boy. Now, the story for how this happens goes back to 1968 when the newly formed MLB Players Association was working with players to increase compensation, and one of the people that they were negotiating with was Topps. They issued kind of a decree that encouraged all of their players in the 1968 season not to pose for Topps until they could ensure a better contract, and that is what occurred. And so all through the 1968 season, Topps wasn't able to get photos. So when it came time to build the 1969 set, they had no new photos to use. So they tried to use as many old photos as they can, doing some airbrushing, trying to do hatless photos, and all of those contributed to why you have so many old photos that appear in the 1969 Topps set. Now, the issue was with new players to the league, acquiring photos for them. What Topps did is they had to reach out to freelance photographers to supply some photos. And one of the guys that they reached out to was a photographer named George Brace. He was Chicago-based photographer who contributed a lot of photos over 65 years to different Topps sets at times, and he supplied a list of photos, and one of them was this photo of California Angels bat boy Leonard Garcia. And for some reason on the back of the photo, he has a notation written on it of Aurelio Rodriguez. And when he sent the photos into Topps, apparently nobody really quality checked the information listed on them was accurate, and so the card got produced of Aurelio Rodriguez with the photo of the bat boy Leonard Garcia. Now there are a couple of rumors or theories on how this happened. Some think that it's possible that when George Brace was taking photos that day at the stadium, he couldn't find Aurelio, and so he just asked the bat boy to pose for the photo in his place and took it thinking that that would be kind of funny. This seems pretty implausible that Brace would have done that. He was a professional, and doing something like that probably would have risked his relationship with Topps and opportunities to sell his work. So it doesn't seem that it was really likely. And the other theory is that Aurelio thought it would be a funny joke that he just sent the bat boy in his place to pose for the picture, knowing that, hey, the photographer doesn't know him and won't know the difference. This one also seems kind of implausible because Aurelio at the time was 21 years old and only spoke a little bit of English and hardly at all. So it seems unlikely that he would have thought that this would be, that funny and would have been able to communicate with somebody to pull it off. Best guess is it was just kind of an errant notation on the back of the source photo. From there, quality control issue and brace, and including the photo with the photos he sent to Topps, and then Topps's quality control and validating that the pictures all matched who was notated on the back. As it turns out, it's an interesting story, and luckily for Aurelio, he did have a long major league career, so this isn't the only card that was ever created for him, but for one season, the Bat Boy got his moment in the sun.
In 1993, an error version of a Topps rookie card of Frank Thomas came into the spotlight when it was featured nationally in the baseball card magazine Beckett. The card featured the Big Hurt in his Auburn uniform, but with no name on front. Since then, it has been a source of mystery and intrigue, and as the scarcity of the card became revealed, it became a major target for collectors. Now, in 1990, Topps baseball cards were produced through something called offset lithography. How that works is ink is transferred from a printing plate to a rubber blanket, and then from the blanket to the printing medium. To create a full-color baseball card, the cardstock completes 4 separate printing passes: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Now fast forward to 2009. One collector, by looking at an uncut sheet of 1990 Topps baseball cards, developed a theory that possibly a piece of paper or cardstock got stuck in between the printing blanket and the cardstock, and that probably cards surrounding the Frank Thomas would also be affected. Those cards include John Hart, John Morris, Jim Acker, and the Craig Biggio All-Star card. He posted his theory on an online forum, and as a result, many collectors came forward with pictures of these surrounding cards that had portions where the black plate was indeed missing. So there's other possibilities, other theories other than a piece of paper, and that could be a dirty or damaged printing plate. Something could have prevented the black photo negative from being etched in the plate, or a portion of the plate was inadvertently exposed to light, causing a chemical reaction. Also, another possibility was a dirty blanket. These things have to be cleaned regularly, and possibly it wasn't washed properly. If you look at the missing portion on an uncut sheet, it's just like a swipe, like as if someone were cleaning. So, the same way you would wipe something away with a towel or a rag. So it might have just been cleaned improperly. There are some theories that Topps did this on purpose. I don't really believe that happened. They say that the amount of cards with the error are very small. It is estimated that it's only in the hundreds, and the cards were mainly found in wax packs in the New England area. So why would they do this on purpose? Just in order to drive up the demand for the product, which is unlikely because the card wasn't really made into public spotlight until like 1993. You'd think Topps would have found a way to bring the card into the public's, mindset before 1993 in order for people to make people buy 1990 Topps cards. And also at the time of the printing, Frank Thomas was not as highly regarded a prospect of some others. So it's my theory that it wasn't done on purpose. So however it happened, it was an accident. So that's a Frank Thomas card, and we'll see what else B-Side's got to tell us about.
So the next story I want to offer in our Air Card Chronicles is the story of the 1962 Topps Green Tints, and I consider this series of baseball cards a classification of air cards unto themselves, because it's a case where an entire series of cards is found in what would be considered an air type variation. And it was the second series of Topps baseball in 1962. Now, Topps was dealing with a lot in 1962. You had baseball expanding, And so they were trying to manage making sure that they would be able to get pictures of the players on the cards that would designate the right teams without knowing for sure who might get selected in the expansion draft. And so they had to hold back production as late as possible to try and work that out and have multiple photos of players that could be used, ones that would show a logo and maybe ones that would not show a logo in case that player had to be depicted as being part of another team. And so the first series gets out, and then the second series is out as well. And the second series was cards 110 through 196. And demand for baseball cards was increasing quite a bit. You'd had the great 61 season with Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle the year before, and now baseball had expanded into new cities. All of these things helped combine to make baseball probably as popular as it had ever been. And so the demand for cards was really high, and Topps hadn't printed enough to meet that demand, but didn't want to miss out. So they were trying to find a way to get more cards printed, but the printers that they were already contracting to make their cards had already had to begin working on getting the Series 3 cards ready to go for production and didn't have the manpower or the equipment available to devote the resources to making extra Series 2 cards. So Topps basically, in desperation, created some new printing plates of the cards for Series 2 and sent them off to a different printer and contracted them to help out. Well, unfortunately, it looks like the printer they chose for this did some substandard work, and either they forgot to use magenta printing plates entirely, or there were significant issues with the magenta color separations that were utilized, and the result ended up being really large patches of lime green color all throughout the cards, a lot of washed out appearance on some of them, strange skin tones on a number of these sets. Now, this set, while, at the time was kind of treated as, gosh, why are some of these cards so ugly? and a lot of them were probably disposed of because, they had obvious printing flaws and deformities. But, as things happen, now those variations, which are more rare, are more and more sought after among collectors now. So what was originally looked at as lousy quality control junk is now considered the rare and desirable.
Great stuff, B-Side. Now I want to talk to you guys about a card that is now known as the King of Error cards. In the 1980s, a collector named Larry Frisch discovered an error on a 1909 T206 card. He kept his discovery a secret while he attempted to look for more specimens. This card is of Joe Doyle, who was a fairly unextraordinary pitcher. He pitched 5 seasons with a 22-21 record and a nice 2.85 ERA. He played for the New York Highlanders, which later became the Yankees. And the error is, in this 1909 T206 card, it says Doyle, New York National. The problem is that the Highlanders were in the American League. Now, it is believed that this was a mix-up with Joe Doyle and Larry Doyle, who was a second baseman for the New York Giants, an NL team, National League team. So, at the time of printing, the error was noticed very quickly, and the National was removed. It was not replaced with American, it was just removed. Now it remains as the the National League version remains as one of the rarest cards ever made. There are 4 Doyle cards in the set, 1 that depicts Joe with his hands over his head, and 3 that depict Larry Doyle. But only the one with Joe and his hands over his head has an error variation. And right now there are less than a dozen known to be in existence. So good luck finding that one. Just a neat, beautiful looking card and a rare error. And it's just a unique card because even the corrected version, doesn't have American or National League signified on it. So even the corrected version is unique for the set because it doesn't say the league. So anyways, that has been our second installment of Double D Card Talks just on error cards. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we will see you next time.